Hey everyone, welcome to episode 28 of the Livin The Dream video podcast. I'm Rishi Barran. This show showcases the greatness that's being done all over the country. I think we're close to 40 states now with graduates from the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting. And today's guest has been off to a hot start in Zanesville, Ohio. He's working at WHIZ-TV in the birthplace town of Dan Patrick himself, the one and only Dylan Kerns with us. Dylan, thanks for taking some time out of all the busyness that I know goes on for you on a daily basis.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having me, Rishi. A lot going on in terms of sports, TV, everything that's going on in those aspects. But excited to be here and share whatever story I have.
Well, I know you've got a lot of stories to share. We were talking about some stuff right before we started that I didn't even know about, Dylan, but we'll start at the start. Where did this dream of being a sportscaster develop for you, and where did it start?
So I grew up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, and there's a couple aspects that go into it. I kind of fell in love with play-by-play before I got into school, which I can get into in a little bit. But the play-by-play aspect, I really grew into that. And when I was younger, I watched the Fort Wayne Comets, a local hockey team in town, and they had this legendary radio voice named Bob Chase. And I don't know if you know who Mike Emmerich is, who did NBC and hockey with all his prestigious career, but he was a young kid who went up to this Bob Chase guy. He was in the Indiana area, grew up there as well. And he went to all these games, and Chase kind of took him under his wing. And this Bob Chase guy had the talent to go anywhere he wanted, but he wanted to stay right there in Fort Wayne, Indiana, covering the Fort Wayne Comets. So he was sitting there doing that. Doc Emmerich was kind of under him, and then Emmerich blasted off his career under him with his connections and kind of went on his own way. So I kind of followed up through the hockey aspects of local area doing stuff like that. Then my dad and I, we'd go to baseball practice, my little league games or whatever. And Pat Hughes was on the radio with Chicago Cubs on the WGN radio, 670 The Score, whatever was going on there. He was broadcasting games, and I just fell in love with the painting the picture aspect of being able to tell a story without even seeing the game.
There's something about being in a minor league town. I grew up in a minor league city myself, more of a baseball city in full, but for you with the minor league hockey and seeing how that all works, how did that grow your love for sports, being around it all the time in your hometown?
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, I actually just took my girlfriend back there last week, but it's a great area, great hockey town, really. There, you look at a lot of these towns don't really have much going for them, but they got their minor league teams. And the Comets, they have a 10,000 seat arena that's almost NHL size with 3 decks, 600 nosebleeds looking down. And there's so much history that goes into it. So I was kind of born into that as a young kid, and my grandpa was a season ticket holder in 2009 and still is to this day. So I've gone to plenty of those games and seeing the holistic view of hockey and just everything that goes into a minor league sports and covering stuff like that.
You brought up a couple of play-by-play announcers that you really respected and loved as a kid. What did you notice about them and how they painted the picture that really stuck with your heart as you started your own broadcasting journey?
One thing that Pat Hughes does before every single Cubs broadcast is first inning, he always says what all the teams are wearing: gray trousers. Like he goes through everyone's uniforms and says exactly what they're doing. So before he even sets it up, he's telling you, all right, what are they wearing? So you can kind of figure out what's going on. Not a lot of broadcasters even say what the teams are wearing. They're just out there trying to say what's going on with each play. But he really sets the narrative, like a calm and windy 32 degrees and at Wrigley, reporting from Wrigley Field, and he just goes into it like it's a whole story that he opens up from the jump, to where if you're listening from start to finish, you can really understand everything that's going on. But in terms of, I noticed in his play-by-play, he'd get stuff out there, but then he'd go back into whatever it was. So if there's a lot going on, a line drive to left center field, 3 runners score, he's not wasting his breath saying everything that happens. He'll just talk in bullet points. And then after the play's over, it was a screamer to left center. 2 runners came in. He was on his horse from first, and kind of just fill it in from there. So you can kind of listen and pay attention to what all is going on.
Those descriptive adjectives and verbs help so much with painting the picture, as you eloquently put it earlier. And I've noticed that's carried over into your work now. I know from talking to a lot of people who went into sportscasting that there's this weird kind of camaraderie that we all have, that maybe subconsciously we did some of the same stuff as kids, not even realizing anybody else would do it. I would make up imaginary players and play basketball and call the game as I was going through it. Did you do anything like that to kind of hone your chops once you knew you liked to do the play-by-play?
It's funny you ask. I kind of did it as a PA announcer, but I'd come home from those hockey games that I went to as a kid, and it'd be 11 o'clock at night. My parents are ready to go to bed. I got the mini goal set up with my stick down there, and I'm screaming out every single player that's coming out on the ice. And I'm out in the living room just running through every name on the team. I got my program that I'm looking at, and I'm screaming everyone's name as I come through. So I was kind of doing it in a public address aspect, but it was still that feeling of I'm broadcasting whatever's going on, even though it may be imaginary after the game.
We're talking to Dylan Kerns. He is a sports anchor and reporter at WHIZ-TV in Zanesville, Ohio. Dylan, you got into sports really young. I know in a minor league town, sometimes you get these close-up encounters with players as they're kind of beginning their careers. Did you have experiences when you were young around athletes that also drew you into kind of that camaraderie of being around, maybe a locker room later on in your career?
Not necessarily. I will say they did have skate nights on Sunday nights where after the game you can go out on the ice and skate, and all the players would be out there. You can get them to sign your jersey and stuff like that. So kind of the stuff that goes on there. But I will say one thing that was pretty cool that stuck out to me. When I was still a fan, it was 2016. So I was 16 years old. I was out there. I met this goalie for the Comets named Spencer Martin. He was coming up through the through the Colorado Avalanche system, who was an affiliate with the Comets. And he was sitting there, he was playing a game, whatever. I talked to him after the game and kind of just like introduced myself, got a picture, whatever it was. And then I knew that he was accredited because he was obviously in an NHL system, but never made the league. And then this year he's the backup goalie for the Columbus Blue Jackets. And I got to
Wow.
interview him here about
Huh.
6 years later. And I was like, I was that kid in Fort Wayne, so kind of went full circle. So the whole athlete to now aspect is pretty cool.
You mentioned that you just went home to see family with your girlfriend. How
Yeah.
did your family influence you as a young person growing up to become who you've become today?
They've done a lot. I've one thing that I've always had, which has been really nice, is a lot of support. No matter what I do, whether it's playing sports, whether it's talking about them, whether it's just going through everyday life, I've always had that support from my family, both my mom's side and my dad's side. So it's always given me comfort to be able to take those risks because I know no matter what, they always have my back. And even if something doesn't go right, I know that they're always in my corner.
Support necessary to succeed in this business, because there's a lot that goes into it. We'll go into some of the craziness that Dylan deals with on a daily basis a little bit later. But now let's take it to the high school level, right? You're obviously very interested in sports. It's a big part of your life. But when did you start to take shape that, hey, this could be my career?
So when I was playing, I kind of shifted my perspective. I played high school baseball. I played some high school basketball. I was a scrappy basketball player a little bit. So my freshman year, I made the C team. Or no, my sophomore year, I was on the C team. So I was on the freshman team as a sophomore. I told the coach, I was like, look, I can provide some experience and come off the bench and take charges. And I was like, I had to pitch him that I can do whatever it takes to be on the team. Well, the following year, I knew my eligibility was up. I couldn't play JV. I wasn't good enough to play JV even as a junior. So I became a team manager. So I understood like watching like behind the scenes of what all's going on. So I'm taking everything in, how coaches are running practices, the interaction with players. When the media starts coming, like the TV wants to do a preview on the basketball team, and I'm there watching how they conduct things. So it was kind of cool to see it from a different lens. And from that side of it, I understood. I was like, I'm a pudgy, non-athletic kid. I was like, I'm probably not going to play at the next level. I said, so with that, if I want to stay in this industry and stay in the business, I got to go back to something that I knew was always there, but it took me a while to realize it.
And what were the steps that you knew you had to take to make that a reality?
It came to me later. So I went through my journey. I went through school, got done with high school, and was sitting there still wondering, like, okay, how do I get into this? So I wasn't sure how to break in, what was right for me, because I knew I didn't like every single day school grind. Like I didn't enjoy the whole I'm going to science. Like that type of stuff. It wasn't up my alley. I wanted to know what time the Lakers were playing. I wanted to know like what's going on. That's what I wanted to do. So when I first got out of high school, I was like, all right, I'm just gonna find a job, work, and then see what happens. So I worked for a little bit, and then I saw the ad for the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting on Twitter and was like, this is for me. So I walked up to my mom. I was like, "Could we make this happen?" I was like, this is something I want to do. So from the first day on, a creative presentation talking about resonating, from that day on, it resonated with me and I was ready to go.
So right when you saw that ad, you just knew.
Yeah, it hit me. I was like, this is perfect. I said I could be done in 29 months. I can grind. It's something I love. It changes every single month. I'm like, this is right up my alley. This is something for me. So joined it, and it was the best decision I ever made.
Putting together stories about the late night Blackhawks games versus quantum physics and diving into all that sounds a little bit more appealing, huh?
Yes, yes.
So on your way to Full Sail, I know that something that you really appreciate is stand-up comedy also. And you, I feel like once you came to us, you were kind of pretty comfortable in your skin in terms of knowing who you are. At least that was my perception. How did like your knowledge of comedy help you with finding your own personal voice?
Yeah, it's something that came naturally once I got into the program. It's something that I knew. My dad's very outgoing. He'll talk to a brick wall and have an hour conversation and think that he's his best friend afterwards. Now, my mom on the other side is kind of quiet and doesn't really do much and say much or anything like that. And I knew that I was always funny because when I did speak, my friends would laugh. So I knew that I had something there, but I didn't really have the outgoingness of my dad, and he preached it for me forever growing up. He's like, "Hey, you should start doing stuff like that." So it kind of took me getting into the program to kind of understand that, I can do this. I can go out there and talk and be myself, and people are either going to hate me or love me. And at the end of the day, that's what I got to do. So if I wanted to succeed, I knew I had to do it. So yeah, you mentioned my love for stand-up comedy. I watched so many comics over the years and whatever they do, and it works for them. And I'm like, hey, they're funny and they're showing what they know. I'm like, I can show what I know. They're good storytellers. I can be a good storyteller. Why don't I put some humor behind it too and kind of mix myself into that area?
How did that help you with your timing and your delivery all these years of watching these comics perform?
It really did help. I noticed that in comedy, they bring a joke back or something like that. They set it up and they set it up and then they bring it back, and then it ties a bow on a story. So when I'm thinking of, okay, I'm not going to compare it to telling a sports story, but obviously in terms of delivering, you got to know that you can't go on for days. You keep going on and on and on, you're going to lose people. So they hit it and they time it out perfectly by setting it up, getting to the meat, and ending it by tying a bow all within just a minute or something smaller than that. And I'm like, that's perfect right there. So I kind of felt that in terms of being on TV, you can't go on and on for days because people's attention span just isn't there.
And that's so critical. And I think one of the more difficult things early on with teaching people how to write for broadcast is to make sure that you get to the point very clearly and pretty quickly. And it's funny you bring up the comedy tying a bow on it. Mike Stenton in his broadcast writing class teaches the comedy callback, which is exactly that, right? And I think he plays this clip from The Simpsons. I'm a big fan of The Simpsons, and maybe my favorite episode ever. It was the Cape Fear episode. I don't know if you're a Simpsons guy, Dylan, but Sideshow Bob, one of the big comedic hits in it. Sideshow Bob is this villain who basically wants to get back at Bart Simpson, the kid in the show. And he goes to try to get him, and he starts stepping on these rakes, and they hit him in the head. And they brought that joke back multiple times in that episode and then in future episodes. And it's just such an illustration of how remembering something that happened earlier can tie back to it. And I saw that in your writing as you went through, as you understood that concept. And I I think it really hit home for you. So when
Yeah.
you got to Full Sail, what was your first impressions? You took the program as an online student. What was your first impression of kind of how everything was set up?
I really enjoyed it. I really liked how fast paced it was, how it was ready to go. Like once I stepped into my first class and had that first Zoom session, it was from that point on, I felt okay, this is gonna be that 29-month grind and I'm ready. Like this is you're going every single month, week to week, and you're gonna have to step in and bring your big guns because it's daunting when you look at it that way, but when you understand, just take it day by day, it's a lot of fun because I enjoyed every single class I took. Uh, Maybe not every single class I took, but I enjoyed the assignments that I took, especially now looking back at whether it was broadcast writing, whether it was shooting live sports or the stand-ups or the interviews or whatever you had to do. It was a lot of fun looking back at it all saying, wow, that was a school assignment and it really helped me in my career today.
You seem to be the type that took the extra steps to connect with the instructors. What motivated you to go above and beyond to find a way to make the experience more than it had to be?
I knew in order to get to the next level, it kind of took me a little bit to understand it, I think, but I realized, okay, I'm joining this program. It's still fairly new when I joined, just a couple years old. And I said, okay, these instructors have experience in the industry. They know what they're doing. And I was like, I want to be on their level someday. Like, I want to be able to experience the same things that they do. I want to hear Mac McDonald talk about how he called ACC basketball for so long. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool. I'll kind of want to do that, you know? So it's kind of seeing everyone brought together in one area that has so many years of experience in different things. And when I was just starting out, I'm like, this is exactly what I want to do. I was like, they've done it. So why not like go above and beyond and prove that, hey, I'm willing to grind, I'm willing to work, and I want to make an impression and kind of reach out and see what worked for them. So maybe it gives me some sort of understanding and knowledge on how I can get there.
I know you made an early friendship with Mac, who teaches the vocal training, the first vocal training class. And for those of you who may not know who Mac McDonald is, called games for two of the most legendary big men in the history of sports, Ralph Sampson and Tim Duncan. Ralph Sampson while he was at Virginia, Tim Duncan while he was at Wake Forest. And Mac, one of the few people who has called the legendary Chaminade over Virginia upset. There were probably, I don't know how many people, 150 people there in Hawaii watching it, and he called that. But you formed a friendship with him. And being a play-by-play guy as you are, Mac's experience, I know, meant a lot to you. How did those conversations with him help shape your own path?
I felt like, honestly, not only just his broadcasting career, but his perspective on life as well. Enjoy every single day, like be happy. And he was telling me his early stories about how he became a broadcaster and when he started doing play by play. Treat everyone like they're your friend. Treat everyone the same. So if it's a stat person in the press box, treat them. Hey, how's it going? You know, if it's someone making popcorn downstairs, hi, how's it going? Just introduce yourself, say hello, and be kind to everyone there. So that kind of shook me like, hey, you don't just because you're doing a different job still means you're still working at the same place as everyone else. So be nice to everybody there. But I understood like, okay, he's done this job for so long and he knows what he's doing and he's doing a vocal training class. So I'm like, if he knows how to call play by play for this long, that's something that maybe I could learn and kind of shape those vocals, talking down here instead of up there and stuff like that. But just his whole perspective on broadcasting, play by play, and just everything that goes into that was pretty neat to see from someone from that aspect. Because, like I said, before I got in, that was all I wanted to do.
I know he also helped you get connected with STAA, Sportscasting Talent Agency of America. When you decided to join that organization and network through it, what did you take from it?
I'm actually still in the STAA. Been really close with John Chalesnik, who's the owner of that. But it's a really great program. Everyone is still networking in that. It's almost like a second group of network that you have. You can go there, you can post things, you can get feedback. it's a great thing for that. And he sends job leads every day. So there's feedback, things like that you can reach out, and he's always on your side whenever you need help in terms of critiquing or help with a demo reel. I know we get that through school as well, but it's just nice to have extra eyes, extra perspective, and take the time to kind of understand what all goes into succeeding. And I honestly, I wouldn't have had the Zanesville job if it wasn't for his job lead he sent to my email.
And for any of you who might want to be like Dylan and join that, you can find them on social media. You can go to their website. They do have a discount if you've got a full sale email. So just reach out. You do have to pay for it, but as Dylan said, it's been super valuable for him as he's gone along with his career. Dylan, we talk all the time about being in the right place at the right time. And I know that doing a full sale assignment that had nothing to do with play-by-play helped you to land your first big play-by-play job. Can you describe that story for us?
Yeah, it's still one of the craziest stories that's happened to me so far. So I reached out. So it was in Lee's class. Lee DeJarlis, he taught the shooting live sports or something like that, where you had to shoot the hype video and you needed multiple sports in there. It was January, so I shot a basketball game at a local high school, and I'm like, man, what's the second sport going to be? I had trouble finding like what other sport can I get that's a different than basketball that I can get during January. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm going to reach out. It was the last day that I could have done it. And I reached out to the baseball coach at the University of South Carolina, Beaufort. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you're practicing right now. I said, but I'd like to come out and shoot this. It's for a school assignment, blah, blah, blah. So I go out there, I'm shooting them, practicing, and they're taking batting practice and all that stuff. And the coach finally gets some time and he comes over. He's like, hey, Coach Faulkner, blah, blah, blah. Started talking a little bit. And I was sitting there shooting. He goes, okay, so you're in the program. Like, what things are you enjoying? Like, what's your end goal? What do you want to do? And he's from the Michigan area, talked about how he loved radio and play-by-play and how he listened to the greats and big Tigers guy. And he said, look, he said, he actually knew my high school baseball coach as well. And he told me, he's like, look, they're looking for a color commentator right now on the broadcast at the stream. He's like, our season starts in 2 weeks. So he said, I can give you the SID's number if you want to reach out to him. He said, but he's like, I don't know what it would be, but he said, if you're interested, I could definitely set you up with that. So he gave me the number. I reached out to the SID. They had me in for an interview. They're like, all right, we'll give you a 2-week trial basis. And if you succeed, we'll keep you on. So after 2 weeks, they're like, all right, yep, you can stay. Stayed there for a little bit. Play-by-play guy got sick. I stepped in and play-by-play, had a home run call. And from that, the wheels took off.
Well, you put yourself in a position to succeed because you said yes. You had that conversation. You were there doing something. And now look at what it brought you. You called more than 100 games for the Sand Sharks, a little baseball, a little softball, a little women's soccer. How enlightening was it to have an opportunity to do that as such a young man?
It was awesome. It was such a great, and I still think back of doing that. Like, I was in school, so I lived at home. I was in school, so I'm like, I don't really need to make a lot of money. I can just go have fun, you know? So I'm up in the press box eating a hot dog in the third inning, talking about how the Sand Sharks are playing St. Thomas or some school from Florida in the Sun Conference that's just going out there playing baseball every single day. I'm like, this is the best job in the world. I know I'm not making anything or very not much, but it was fun. I went to the ballpark and that was my home. It was my workspace. So definitely enjoyed that. Built up a lot of reps in that area too. And I didn't know where it would lead me, but I knew I enjoyed it and had fun while I was doing it.
What was your preparation like at that point when you were calling those games?
I did a lot of prep, especially in the off season. They'd have signings come in, they'd have transfers or whatever they have. And I'd break down every single kid. I looked up stories. I looked up from their hometown MLB players, like everything that could go into every single kid that I had like a stat sheet on. So especially early on, my first year that I was doing that, I'm like, this is going to be a nightmare. I need to make sure that I can fill 3 hours if if something happens. So I made sure that I had enough stats on everything. I had one of the parents played D1 softball and the dad played D1 baseball. And I'm like, well, you got those two together. No wonder we're seeing him out here today, like stuff like that. But definitely had a lot of background and read a lot of player bios before I wrote everything down.
Well, when you call 100 games of something, you get better. What were your biggest areas of growth during your time in that job?
I'd honestly say just, I mean, you hit the nail on the head by saying that doing it every day definitely helps. So, being out there every single day, calling the games, getting an understanding of the league. When you start playing more games, you have a feel. When it's opening day and you haven't seen the team before, you're kind of just you're going out there blind. But when you have win streaks and losing streaks, and you get to talk to the coaches more and stuff like that, you're like, okay, now you're more comfortable. They're used to seeing your face. They're going to tell you things like, hey, he's going to have Tommy John in 2 weeks. Oh, like there you go. So just talking more with the team and getting more comfortable in the position definitely helped with the career in terms of play-by-play.
And I would recommend anybody who wants to do anything in this business to take an opportunity to do play-by-play. All the campus students had the chance to work with Rollins College, local college right down the road from Full Sail. And those who are online students can do what Dylan did and try to get an opportunity with one of your local teams. But even if you don't want to do play-by-play, it helps you with learning how to ad lib, learning how to organize your thoughts, obviously your delivery, obviously your communication of a message. So super helpful. Dylan right now isn't doing play-by-play, although he could always go right back into it. But because of the skills he learned from play-by-play, they carry over into everything else. What would you say the play-by-play has helped you with as a professional now as an anchor reporter?
Yeah, you just nailed it with ad-libbing. You get thrown to the wolves sometimes out there. Like, not saying that it's a bad or good thing, but like in terms of when you're doing play-by-play, sometimes you're out of words. They're like, hey, you're on cams here. And you have to be comfortable ad-libbing in situations where maybe you don't feel the best or whatever you want to do. So those live on cam things that I was doing, or in-person interviews that I was doing after a game that's on camera, or things like that I had from that job. Now it's like, okay, if we're 2 minutes under in the show and you're closing the show, Dylan, you got 2 minutes to fill. Okay, now I can do it. Like, I can ad lib, I can tell you those things and whatever. And it drove my directors crazy whenever I'd set up my show. I'd write the video, or I'd edit the video for a highlight, and it's like a minute long. So I'd go into iNews and I'd set it up and I'd put the time in. It's 1 minute. I wouldn't write a script. And they're like, Dylan, why does it say 1 minute? I was like, trust me, it'll be a minute. They're like, I don't like this. I was like, trust me, it'll be a minute. So I go out there and I understand I'm watching the play, reacting, and I'd have a couple bullet points written down for stats or whatever you want to fill in the blank. But it drives them nuts whenever I do that. But definitely ad-libbing and improvising has definitely helped.
Yeah, and the important thing is just give them the information they need, right? So if you're going off a shot sheet and your notes, that's totally, I mean, that's what we teach you to do, right? But make sure they just understand that, okay, this is what my out cue is going to be or something like that. Give them the information to know. But I think there is a comfort for them knowing they can trust you because you're able to time out your, not only ad lib, but time out your ad libbing and time out what you're doing. So you meet their needs with what they're doing. We're talking to Dylan Kerns, former voice of the Sand Sharks at University of South Carolina, Beaufort. And he now works in Zanesville, Ohio as a sports anchor and reporter. While you were in school, you had another kind of interesting opportunity that came up while you were 21 years old. In addition to the play-by-play and doing a little public address announcing, which we'll touch on in a minute, you had a chance to be an extra in a TV show. How'd that happen?
Yeah, so I was scrolling through TikTok one night, as most people do, and I was sitting there going through, and one of the baseball accounts I follow, he's like, "Do you want to get paid to be a baseball player?" I was like, "Okay, here we go." Like, all right, whatever this is. And he's like, "They're casting extras," and I'm like, "Oh, all right." So he's not joking. So I click on the link. It was only an hour and 10 minutes for me. I'm like, that's not a bad drive. So I applied. I reached out. They're like, "Hey, we need extra high school baseball players." They're like, if you're not in high school, obviously it's hard to work in high school when you're doing that. They said you need to shave your face. They gave great compensation. They let me know that, hey, this is what you got to do. Bring your glove. And I was named a special extra because you can't bring someone off the street and say, go fake being a baseball player. Like they said, with me being able to play baseball, that I was a special extra, which means an increase in pay. So I'm sitting there I had to shave my face, but I'm out there with my glove on, and they use CGI, which is fake baseball. So we never even put a ball in play because they didn't want a camera destroyed. So we're out there and I'm going through the motions of fielding the ground ball, throwing it to first and stuff like that. 3 days on set, met a lot of people, and one of the stunts that I met down there actually just invited me to his wedding. So great
Wow.
opportunity, and had a lot of fun doing that as well.
A special extra. I didn't know that existed.
Yeah,
Well,
me neither.
you got your dream of being a baseball player after all that you said you
Right.
didn't think you were going to meet. So I know you worked, you were just telling me, with Elle Fanning, famous actress, Dakota Fanning's sister, for those who don't know her. I thought it sounded like you had some fun on set and some interesting experiences off set.
Yeah. One thing that my buddy that I got invited to the wedding, his name's Avery. We were all just hanging out, and there's a lot of downtime whenever you're acting or whatever's going on. They're moving cameras around, and there's a lot of downtime. So we made a lot of connections with other stunts and extras that were on part of the set as well. So Elle was over by us. She had a dugout scene where she had to be in the dugout. So we're sitting there talking, and we weren't like bombarding or talking to her or anything like that. But we were talking to one of the stunts. We're like, "Hey, there's karaoke at 8 Oak 36 every single Monday night." And Elle's like, it was Jeff Wahlberg. It's Mark's nephew. He was on set as well. And he goes, "I love karaoke." She's like, "Elle, we should go." And I'm like, there ain't no way. There is no way that they're going. So she had like 3 phones on her, and she whipped out one of them. It was like, all right, here. She gave her number to one of the stunts. It was like, text whenever you want to go. So we end up going to Oak 36 at like 8 o'clock at night. Elle pulls up about 8:45, sunglasses on, baggy sweatshirt, can't see her, don't know who she is. She gets in there, we're sitting there having a good time. We're watching the ALCS where the Red Sox were playing, and she was talking about baseball, obviously, because we were baseball extras as well. And she said that her dad pitched in the Cardinals organization. So I was like, okay. So then I looked it up. I'm like, she's not kidding. They stayed there for about 25, 30 minutes and left. They sang a little bit of karaoke. She didn't, but Jeff Wahlberg did. They left, and we stood there. We were probably there till 3 a.m. just living it up. It was a great night.
Did you sing?
I did not sing.
What did Jeff sing? You
Wait, no,
remember?
I did sing. I sang "Swimming Pools" by Kendrick Lamar.
There you go. There you
I forgot
go.
what Jeff sang though.
So it's a really cool experience, regardless. The on the set of The Girl from Plainville, right? That's the name of it, right?
Yeah.
But what'd you take from being on set about television? Because obviously you're in television, maybe a different kind of TV, but what'd you take from it?
I didn't really put the two and two together, but um, it actually did open my eyes a little bit. One of the guys, the producers that was setting up everything, he's like, okay, we don't need a walk. Like if we're doing a cut scene and they're showing the baseball game, we need action. They're like, okay, so we need to put the ball in play. People want to see action. So then I was thinking in my head, I'm like, in terms of a highlight read, am I going to show a field goal that's meaningless in a football game? No, people want the action. So it kind of like opened my eyes in that aspect behind the scenes where I'm like, they want the action. They want to see things happen. So whenever I was sitting there doing that, it kind of made me realize that, yeah, they're probably right in terms of TV as well.
We see a lot of field goals that don't need to be in highlights in class, so cut them out. Although the game last night, you had to show some field goals because there wasn't much else going on that we were watching. Dylan, you did a lot of extra stuff. We just talked about a few things that you've done during your time with us. I did want to just touch on for a second. You were, as a kid, you did the fake public address announcing of the hockey players. Then you got to do it for real life. What did you enjoy about that?
Yeah, I enjoy doing PA. I did a little bit of it at USCB, and then I did a little bit of it. It was maybe 3 games worth at the Savannah Spirit Soccer Club. It was like a women's soccer like summer league thing with down there in Savannah. So I was able to do a little bit of that, kind of just grab the fans' attention with just informing them whatever's going on in the game, substitutions, things like that. But baseball PA, it was a lot of fun because I used to go to the ballpark all the time, and I always wanted to hear the people go out there, and I recognize the voices wherever I was going, and it was just kind of cool to be like, hey, if someone's grabbing a hot dog in line, they're hearing my voice right now, you know? So it's pretty cool.
Well, a lot of people heard your voice as well on some side projects you work on in school, which were you were kind of part of a really elite fraternity with the Rough Cut Sportscast and the Sac City podcast. You became part of this kind of amazing four-person full sail powerhouse that really opened up a lot of things for other online students. How did you originally get involved with that?
So it was funny. I put out my take. I used to, when I was first started, I wanted to do anything and everything just to put stuff out there. So I'd always make my picks public on Facebook, and I'm like, here's who's winning the NFL games this week, and I just put them out there. And I connected with Vinny, Aaron, and AJ just through the school. Like I didn't know them, but I added them as a friend. I was like, oh, they could be a connection down the line, whatever. So I'm sitting there and I'm posting all this stuff, and it was the COVID year where the Washington Reds or the command football team, whatever they were then. It was Alex Smith. They were playing on a Tuesday night or something against the Steelers, and the Steelers were red hot that year. And I'm like, this is a trap game. I'm picking Washington. So I picked Washington, and Vinny's like, this guy knows what he's talking about. So they set up the rough cut, and they're like, Dylan, do you want to join us on an episode and kind of go through like your football, who's going to win and who's, or not who's going to win, but like who's a serious contender and who's not this late in the year? I was like, sure, I could join. So I joined the first ever episode that they did, and for a quick little segment there. And then they're like, we should bring it back. So we did a big football playoff show that we did with everyone. We brought in Aaron for that, and we just rolled game after game. And we're like, we need to do this full time. Like we need to start doing more and more and kind of just go from there. And that's what we did.
How much fun did you have working on that?
That was fun. That was a lot of fun because you could go there. It's your own platform that you're putting out there. You could give your takes. You can get animated. I had one that was crazy when the Jags drafted Travis Etienne. I think I blew an artery on camera. It blew up on TikTok for 22K, which is now hidden. But it was a very bad rant. But I mean, it's a lot of fun. You can kind of just like you come in and Aaron Mukes, if you know him, he'll give a take and he's got 15 layers of information behind it, and you're cooked. Like you have to out prep him, otherwise he's just going to drill you and make you look like an idiot every show. And he did that a lot.
That challenge of trying to one up all of them, where did that get you in the long run?
It helped with prep, especially in play-by-play, because I was doing play-by-play in school at the same time, and then I'd come on for that, and maybe I didn't have enough prep time to talk about why the Ravens are the worst team in the NFL, but Aaron had answers, so you had to bring it and kind of just work your way in and kind of just make sure that you knew what you were talking about before you even agreed to be on, because if you didn't, they'd expose you.
He's going to get paid big money. He's coming off a great year, made plays in the postseason, in the Super Bowl, all that good stuff, and I'm still believing in my source. They're going to be working on a long-term deal.
How proud are you of the work that you all did together?
It was a lot of fun. I think it really helped us get to where we are, especially you go back to the on-air reps, both play-by-play and that. It felt like, okay, I was on a show every night, and it might have been StreamYard with 5 viewers, but it was still you're on. We were rolling live, and we were going through it every single day. So those live reps mixed with the play-by-play and stuff I was doing there, it kind of just made the transition to TV seamless. I wasn't even nervous the first time I went on TV. It was just normal. It was another school assignment that I was doing in a different building.
Reps. He got a lot of reps. It helped him out. And you got some friendships out of it too. As an online student, making those connections is vitally important. What recommendations would you make to other online students in terms of how they can find ways to meet people through the program that can help them and motivate them?
Honestly, just reach out. I don't know if some of them have Facebook or anything like that, but that group page that we have with everybody in there, just reach out, see if anyone's still in the program, or just say, hey, I'm interested in connecting. And you can kind of just build your circle of network from there. Just don't hesitate. Send an email, whether you're looking at someone's feedback and you're like, wow, that's really good. That's someone that I could maybe work with, and maybe we could do stuff together because they have their production's good, their value's good, they're speaking well. Like that's someone that I want to work with. Don't be shy to hesitate and reach out to them, because you never know what can happen. It's definitely something that I can look back on now saying that I'm proud that I did, because it was kind of uncomfortable, but we've heard it from many people. Sometimes you got to be uncomfortable to be comfortable. So that's where we are. So I would just recommend reaching out, and don't hesitate to do anything like that.
That's Dylan Kerns of WHIZ-TV in Zanesville, Ohio. He seems pretty comfortable to me right now. We just talked about all the stuff you did besides the classwork. As a student, how did the coursework that you went through prepare you for the next step?
It was awesome. It was awesome. There wasn't a single assignment that I did, especially in the sportscasting side, when we got past some of the general ed and stuff like that, where we're like, okay, everything that I learned, I could honestly go back and redo and get better. Like everything that I did, it helped a lot. And I got there and I looked at Chris Toll I work with. He went through the program as well. He said, dude, when we're cutting these B-roll and cutting video, he's like, it was harder at Full Sail than it is here. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like, obviously we're still looking for establishing shots and making good B-roll and stuff like that, but timing out things and just everything that goes into it was just like, wow, school was a lot harder than, like, if we worked 2 days at the station now and then went back to school, it would have been crazy. It would have been crazy how much we would have done. But just preparing everything through school was definitely it made it a challenge when you're going through it, but when you're out, it's almost feels like you knew what you've been doing for 5 years when you get into a place.
Well, we're so happy to hear that, because that's really our most important thing, is making sure you all feel ready and prepared when you take that step, a step that you have taken quite well. Before we get to what you're doing now, you got to enjoy the graduation experience a few times, because you guys with the rough cut all would come and support each other multiple times. I know you guys were on campus together. How did that make it more special to enjoy each other's success with some friends?
It was awesome. And I go back to the whole school journey. It was really cool the moment that I met those guys, because we kind of challenge each other to get better. Like Vinny with his graphics. I mean, you can try to compete, but you're not going to get there. Like there's certain things that you're always challenging each other to get better. But at the end of the day, we were friends, we supported each other, and we wanted to see everyone succeed. So seeing Aaron doing the things he's doing in Albany, Georgia, seeing Vinny at CBS Sports, like everyone getting out and doing those things, it was kind of really cool to just see everyone's success and just be a part of that, because we were excited for each other during school and we were challenging each other. And then when we finally got there, it's like, hey, congrats, we finally made it.
And now you're building your own path of success. What's it like living the dream right now?
It's a lot of fun. I've covered a lot of cool events, a lot of fun things that have been something that I don't think I would have ever covered or ever even thought about, that, hey, I could be presented this opportunity to do this today. Once I got out of school, I was like, okay, I'm going to go there. I'm going to cover some high school sports and go from there. I'll cover girls soccer on a Tuesday night and I'll be happy about it. But a lot more has taken place where I feel like this has been one of the greatest blessings as well, just being a part of everything that I've done.
What are some of the favorite experiences that you've had?
Best thing that I've ever done, and I don't think anything will top it. This kid, he played at John Glenn High School, baseball player Colt Emerson. I covered him throughout high school. I did a preview on him before the season started. They're like, watch out, he's a full ride to Auburn. No one from the area has been drafted in the first round in a very long time. Like, he's a legit MLB draft prospect that everyone's looking at. So I'm like, okay, this is pretty cool. I'm out there shooting games. Every single game I'm at, there's 10 plus scouts just sitting there. Rays, Cubs, Guardians, just all these like polos on with binoculars, just watching this kid play baseball. Shortstop, left-handed swing. He looks like Corey Seager out there every day. He's putting balls. I go out to the first practice to see him play. He's launching them, just launching them over there. He hit 12 of the 15 balls over the fence. I was like, I bet the athletic department hates you. He's like, they better get bigger fences. I'm like, okay. So next thing you know, the coolest thing was watching him progress, and they invited me to his draft party at Buffalo
Nice.
Wild Wings. And I was there when he got the phone call that the Seattle Mariners were taking him in the first round. So it was a really cool experience just to see his dream come true, and being able to just go play MLB baseball, and or at least get drafted by an MLB organization. He started off in low A this year, was their leading hitter, led him to a championship, and has the highest batting average of any high school prospect last year's draft.
Well, I'll tell you something else, Dylan. Once they are in the bigs and playing every day, and if you get to see them again, let's say you go and you cover them again, kind of like what you said happened with the hockey prospect that you met, right? So you met a hockey prospect, and next thing you know, he's in Columbus and you interview him. But there's that special moment when you see these people that you knew from a long time ago, and they remember you most of the time. And it's almost like, what are you doing here?
Yeah.
And there's this special bond, I think, that athletes have with reporters who were with them before they were big time and got to see them grow and build. And it's something that, like, it's really a special connection, even if you don't know them that well, that you'll never lose. So I'm just so happy that you got to have a moment like that already in your career.
Yeah, the funny thing is you mentioned that. I know he hasn't done anything crazy big right now, but even after he won the little championship out playing for the Modesto Nuts in California, he was at their homecoming football game and I was on the sideline and he walked up to me. He's like, "Hey man, great to see you." I was like, "You just won a championship. Like, that's pretty cool." He's like, "Yep, 2 weeks off now." He goes, "Then I'm going down to the Arizona Fall League." I was like, "Okay." But it was really cool. Like you said, they recognize you more than you're like, "Oh my gosh, there he is."
There's a comfort people have in people they know they can trust. And especially once you make it to the big leagues, I think athletes are a little more weary of the media because they know that anything they say could be taken any different number of ways. So having that credibility, and if you can build that with athletes over the course of your career, it's gonna lead you to great success as you continue. So in Zanesville, take me through a day of what it's like going through all the million things they have you doing.
Yeah, so we're a dual station, Fox and NBC. So Fox stations, I don't know if you ever worked for one. They always have a 10 p.m. newscast. That's not the best in terms of sports. No scores are in, all that stuff. But the NBC, we have a 5, 6, and 11. In terms of sports, that's what you get. You record for the morning, but most of my day to day looks like I'm there at 2, I'm out by midnight, and usually the other sports guy, I have him take the 5 and 6 shows. I take the late shows. He drives an hour from Columbus every day, so I don't want him getting home at 1 or anything like that. So we kind of go hand in hand. There's no sports director at our station. We're kind of both splitting those hours. And the sports director is the news director, so she's kind of just trust us to do our job and go out there and do whatever we do. But get there at 2, set up the show a little bit, set up stories throughout the week. Sometimes you'll have a package that you have to go out to and shoot in the morning or something like that. But if you don't have any stories, you get in around 2. You get there, you write your teases, you do the commercial tease, whatever it is. Then you get ready, go out there, shoot a game, come back, write the highlights, put it all together, and stack your show, write it up. You'll have the 10 and 11 to do. You'll record for the morning. You'll have 3 radio hits, and you're off. Post to the web as well.
Yeah, just throw that in there too, right? That
Yeah.
rush, because that's deadline pressure every day. It's a lot of stuff you have to do. What's it feel like when you're going through the rush of bam, bam, bam? Now I'm on. Now I got to nail it. Okay, I nailed it.
It's honestly better when you know the content's there. I know you know it. Those slow days in the summer are the worst. There's not much going on. Like you gotta find it. Even last night, we had one girls basketball team in action. Thank goodness the Blue Jackets played, because other than that, it was a dead night. There wasn't a lot going on. Ohio State, Michigan, you could keep going on that a little bit, but it was kind of a slow night in that area. But definitely every single day is different. That's the best part about being in a newsroom. But it was a good time, and I enjoy it.
You reached out to me pretty early on to take a look at some of your packages and some of your work. Let's talk about the packages for a minute. How do you come up with good story ideas in a small local market?
You kind of have to take it through the mind. Like, obviously, you can run a million football previews, you can run a lot of success stories, stuff like that. But sometimes you have to dig deep and find something that maybe most places don't have. And I haven't done it yet, but I've known there's a guy who does professional cornhole who is from the area. I'm like, that'd be a cool summer piece to do whenever he's back. I know cornhole's in the summer, but whenever he's back in town, kind of just like do your stand up where the bag nails the thing and boom, there's your nat pop. And the next thing you know, you're talking about his successes in the Johnsonville tournament or whatever he's got going on. But it's really cool to do that. But just finding those unique stories in a small town, there's many things you can go. I know Chris did one on a stunt team from a local college. They were going to nationals. So not a lot of people care about stunt or anything like that, but it's cool to know that everything's taking place in that area, and you can kind of tell the story that most people don't really know that's going on.
You mentioned Chris Toll a couple of times, another graduate from the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting, another online student who is now working full-time in the business. How did the life as a reporter in Zanesville change for you when you brought him in?
It made it a lot more fun. We could sit there and talk about school. We could sit there and talk about the differences between school and whatever. And we're on the same wavelength with everything that we've learned. We're like, yeah, it's different, but we enjoy the reps that we're getting at this place. And he's the evening news anchor. I'm the evening sports anchor now. So it's cool. We're working together every single day, watching sports games, chatting it up. And it's definitely a lot of fun knowing that someone's been through the same journey that I've been through and started their career in the same place I did as well.
How have you helped each other grow?
We really watch each other. Like we have the feedbacks, whatever we had during school, but now it's like, hey, we're out in the field. We need to make sure that we're not losing our fastball. We got to make sure we're still pumping 99 and not falling down to 92, getting hit around the yard. So we watch each other, critique each other's work. He's like, hey, your shot was a little long, blah, 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 stuff like that. You need to make sure that don't lose your sounded like your voice wasn't as low as it should be. And just things like that. Like, hey, go back to vocal training, do those warm-ups or whatever it is. You just got to understand that there's a lot that goes into it that you might lose.
What do you do on your own to challenge yourself to get better every day?
I try to look from a creative aspect of it. Like last night, most of the time you throw up the local scores and it's just a scoreboard. I'm like, let's start utilizing the TV on the side. So I'm standing in front of a TV. I told the producer or the directors, I'm like, throw up the full screen over here. I'm doing the read on cam. So just trying to get creative in terms of not being stale. I know that sometimes in the area it's always on cam to vo, sod, vo out, like things like that. It's always the same thing every single day. And I've tried to encourage, they haven't let me do it yet, but I'm like, let's start a segment with a sod. Like if we started the Ohio State, Michigan thing with Ryan Day's sod off the bat, we got to be better, blah, 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 blah. There you go. You're hitting them with what they know. Everyone in the area knows the final score of Ohio State, Michigan by 11 p.m. at night. So if you hit them with a SOT, there's different ways to go. So I want to do more creative things, but obviously there's some things that you can't really do.
It's like being an offensive coordinator, right? If you run the ball on first down every play, the defense is going to know and they're going to get tired of it. It's not going to be very effective. But if you throw that deep ball, you throw a little play action with them on first down, sometimes that keeping them on their feet, as you just mentioned, helps a great deal. I really wanted to ask you about this. When you first took the job, and you mentioned the STAA connection helped you get that first job, but when you took the job in Zanesville and you realized that you were working in the city where Dan Patrick was born, what kind of a full circle moment was that for you?
Yeah, it was. I didn't know it at first. I'm like, oh yeah, Dan's from Ohio. So I looked him up, just Googled him. I was like, we'll just see. I knew he spent a lot of time at Dayton, but I was like, he was actually born in Zanesville. I was like, I'll be. So he obviously didn't stay here long, but talked to a couple other people that knew that he was from the area and said, yeah, he spent a little bit of time here before he moved off as a young kid. But it's definitely cool to see that it all came full circle like that.
Really cool. And, it's awesome. I'm sure it's, having that name. And I see on your website, you proudly display that you're a graduate of our program. I love it. And I think, he's certainly really proud of you and everything you've already accomplished. And you got a long way to go in terms of career. You got your whole life ahead of you. Speaking of having your whole life ahead of you, you've had some pretty cool moments throughout your career already. What's the difference between covering kind of the high school sports and then when you get to do some of the bigger events?
It's weird. It's weird because you look back on it, you're like, oh my gosh, I was just at Ohio State, Penn State. I just covered a top 10 college football matchup. And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm over here at boys soccer on a Monday night. So it's kind of like it's not like it's bad by any means. It's just it's different, like you're in a big situation. Like I covered the Guardians in the AL wild card series last year and watched them beat the Tampa Bay Rays in a game that was 18 innings long in the press box where no one scored a game, coming off a Friday Night Football blitz. And then I'm like, okay, here we go. Next day, I'm like, there's nothing to do on a Sunday. I'm not doing anything. And then Monday rolls around and you're out covering volleyball. It's like, it's so weird. Like every day is different, like I mentioned, but some days are more exciting than others. Not that high school sports aren't, but there's some high school sports events that I'm like, you're fired up to go. The two good football teams are playing each other and you want to be there. And it's different in that aspect of it.
What's the hardest part of your job?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I'd probably say I've never missed a deadline, so I can't say it's that.
Good for you.
But I don't know what the hardest part of my job is. Maybe it's not the editing process, because I've gotten better at that. Maybe going to places. That's one factor that not a lot of people think about, is you got to drive an hour to a game, and you kind of have to understand that, hey, there might be a shot you don't get back. Like you might be stuck, you might pop a tire and no one goes on TV. Like there's certain things like that. So maybe I'd say the travel is probably the hardest part.
Well, when you first moved to Zanesville, I can't imagine you really knew anybody or many people there until Chris came, and you didn't even really know him. What advice do you have for people who are going to smaller markets and trying to establish themselves there and be happy there while they're working the job?
Yeah, it's definitely hard. It took me a while to kind of understand, all right, you're out on your own, you're doing your own thing now. And this is a place, especially if you leave the house, you're single, you're by yourself, and you go out and do your thing. And I've actually watched one of the episodes of this where one of the students talked about going to familiar places. And I think that's great advice. Like, go to places where you feel comfortable, whether it's restaurant chains or working out at certain places. Just those things really, I wouldn't say I was struggling with it, but it was something that I still needed to find. When I saw that episode and the student said that, I'm like, all right, maybe I could start doing those things. And it kind of helped me as well. So I kind of got some advice through this podcast that kind of helped me understand what I need to do. But I'd probably say that, and make sure you do what you love. If you love playing video games on the side, don't give it up just because you're by yourself and you have more responsibilities. Still do that because it brings you joy.
Well, hopefully somebody will hear you, and now that'll help them. So keep pushing it down the line, right? What do they call it when you like buy somebody a coffee and pass it forward? Is that it?
Yeah, pass it on or give
Something
it forward. Something.
Yeah, yeah, give it forward. I think that's right. All right, third big question for you. What are your dreams in this business moving forward?
There's a lot there's a lot to do. I want to get to a place where, I want to get to the next level in terms of whatever it may present, whether that's a producer job, whether it's play-by-play, getting back into that, whether it's still in TV. I know one thing that I know sports and I know TV. So I want to find a way to work in that area, even radio as well, with the hits that I do every day. But I know that I know those three things. Like if you told me, hey, you're gonna go be a carpenter, I'm like, what? That sounds terrible, But I know those three things. I know TV, I know sports, and I know radio. So I know it'll be something in that, and I'm just hoping to get to the next level in that avenue. But I'm open to anything in terms of producing, on camera, behind the camera, whatever it may be. I'm hoping to get to that next level, and hopefully in the near future.
Well, you've already been on Sports Center for your play-by-play call back at USC Beaufort. I can't say it. Was it Beaufort? Beaufort. Thank you. But you already had that opportunity. What was that like when you saw yourself in the Sports Center top 10?
Alabama wins it 5-0. At 9, some college baseball, UCSB and Middle Georgia State. Now, coming up, you want to hear this call from a young fella named Dylan Kerns. He's a student of former ESPNer Gus Ramsey at the Dan Patrick School of Sportscasting.
That pitch is hit. Moving over is Terrell. Diving stop, flips to the second baseman. Bare hand by Ambrose, and he gets him out. What a play there. Somebody dial up Bristol, Connecticut for that one.
Oh, that call's been answered. Dylan Kerns getting it done at Full Sail.
You can't stop Dylan. You can only hope to contain him.
It was surreal. Like, obviously I went through it, and I told the kid the next day, I was like, look, I didn't ask for a shout out. Like, you made the play. Like, that was whatever. He's like, no, man. He goes, you really sold it. He goes, I don't know if you didn't mention Bristol, if we'd even been there. I was like, okay. So, but it was a really cool moment in that. I woke up the next morning to a bunch of texts that were blowing me up that are like, oh my gosh, that was really cool, blah, 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 stuff like that. But I was also sitting there realizing, I'm like, now I got to work harder. I'm like, if my name's out there doing that, it was only like 10, 12 months into the program. I wasn't even halfway done, and that happened. And I'm like, okay, now I got to work harder, because that can't be the only thing that I'm known for. You know, I kind of gotta work and see if there's something that I can do that can get better than that, which it's hard to do, but I'm hoping that every single day I can continue to get better and get to that next level.
Let me tell you something. All your hard work has already paid off greatly for you, and it will continue to do so. So keep doing what you're doing. I'm really proud of you.
Thank you.
All right. We like to end these episodes with what I call the dream sequence. 3 questions, quick answers from you. I'll start with, we talked comedy earlier. What would be the dream comedy tour to come through Zanesville or wherever you're going to be living the next time a big tour comes through? Big comedy tour coming through. Who would you want to see?
Oof, that's tough right now. Sebastian Maniscalco.
You
know him?
I do. I just watched him a couple of months ago. Yeah. Very good. All right. I know you play a little golf too. Dream golf foursome if you can play with 3 other people. They don't have to be good golfers.
Dream golf foursome. Give me Steph Curry. He's made a couple shots. Charles Barkley. And we'll go with Justin Thomas.
Nice. So you got a pro in golf, and then a couple other, one guy who looks like a pro in golf, but a couple other legendary NBA players. All right, final question. You've been in a extra role before. What would be your dream movie or TV extra role to be a part of?
Oof. That's tough. I wish it was still running, but I'd like to be in The Hangover. That's a great.
Do The Hangover 4, right? We'll bring it back. Yeah, they can go one more run.
We'll go. Yeah, it'll be Alan's wedding.
Yes, I love that. I love that. You'll be his best man.
Yeah, there we go.
Extra, kind of like Doug was the whole other 3 movies. All right, last thing before we wrap up. What advice do you want to leave anybody who's watching this with?
Just continue to work hard. Like I said, just reach out to people, even if it's in the industry or if it's in the school or whatever you're a part of. Just get on social media, reach out to people, and you never know. Shoot them a DM, shoot them a text, whatever it is. I know my inbox is open if anyone has any questions or anything like that. Just feel free to reach out to people, because getting a job in this industry, 50% of it's probably your skill and 50% is you need people that can help you. So make sure that you help out and reach out to others, and just be the best you can every day by getting better.
Reach out to him. He knows Elle Fanning. He's big time. I want to thank Dylan Kerns for all his time today. It's been fun. We'll go down this road again soon. We'll do these episodes every month. Everybody else, keep on living your dream.